Hey folks. It's Tuesday and it's a snow day. My office was closed today. I kind of worked from home, but I went through everything I could do, and I'm unusually bored, which is like a state I'm not used to because life is so crazy lately. Um and it's actually not even snowing here right now. It snowed for a couple hours this morning, and I think we got about, I don't know, it looked like 4 inches maybe. But now it's raining, so it's become just slushy and disgusting. Um, so anyway, I'm home for an unusual time in the afternoon, and I've already napped, and I've already vacuumed the living room, and I've already done the dishes, and I've already avoided writing. So I thought I would share with you some Lenormand practice I'm doing. Normally, I just do this when I have time, and you know, thought I would just record myself, if for no other reason than just to see, for other people who might be practicing this. As I've said time and time again, I'm not like super duper sure that I feel like this is a system that works for me. But again, that's hard to detect because I've only been working with it for about, oh god, I mean, 4 months, and even with that, not very aggressively. So I've been working with tarot for 17 or 18 years. It's, one can't expect to be an expert after 4 months. I once read way back when, and it may, I think, have been through the American Tarot Association newsletter at the time, but there was a quote that said, "There's no expert like a novice." And I thought that was funny, because only when you're new at something do you really feel like you need to know everything, or expect to know everything, or in some cases actually think you know everything. So here's what I've been doing, really, is just playing with like 3-4 cards at a time, to kind of create a syntax, a sentence around them, and then working with questions, because I feel like without a question, Lenormand doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my experience so far. I've heard in some readings or in some videos how Kelly from The Truth and Story talks about how fake readings in Lenormand don't actually work, and I can kind of see why. But it's really all I got to work with right now, so that's what I'm doing. So I just wrote a bunch of random questions that I would be likely to get on some index cards, and I shuffled those, and just, gonna play with what I might look at as an answer based on the cards and the questions. So the first question I wrote out here is a question I've gotten before. Why am I always drawn to losers? So I'm using the maybe Lenormand here, and actually what I did was I shoved, that's such a weird word. I put all the cards, that's a 56 card deck, so it's not really a Lenormand deck. And so I guess I'm not technically really practicing Lenormand right now. But I also feel like it's like, if you can learn 36 cards, or if you can learn 52, it's on a 56 card, it's a 52 card deck. If you can learn all 52, then the 36, that's, you're golden, because you already know them. So that's for a while I wasn't using them, and I just threw them in there, and now that's what I've been doing. For the extra cards, from 37 on, I'm partly working with what's in Ryan Edwards' book. This is actually a pretty good book that comes with that deck, and partly just deciding what I want them to be. There is, I have noticed, a strong feeling that Lenormand is more rigid interpretation wise. But that said, the cards that I am working with that are extra aren't really part of that. So, again, I'm playing fast and loose anyway. So yeah, let's just, let's watch me sweat a little bit as I try to figure this out. So if I'm working with this question here, which is, let me lower this because all of them I'm going to show you is very tiny. Why am I always drawn to losers? So we have a querent here who is asking, why am I always drawn to losers? So I'm going to shuffle, and I'm just going to actually, I've shuffled already, but I'm going to actually just draw 3 cards and just play and see what comes out. So let's see. So why am I always drawn to losers? We get this agreement. Oh, so here we have all extra cards. So this is going to be interesting. So this is a card of agreement. This is a card of vision, and this is a card of feeling. So I might suggest, in this case, this person might be always drawn to losers, or what she perceives to be losers, because agreement looks like it feels good. Agreement looks like it feels good. So connecting with or engaging with another person seems or looks like it's something really attractive. So there's like a big longing for connection. And we're not necessarily focused on the quality of the agreement, of the connection. We're more interested in the connection itself. So in a way, it's sort of like a willingness to settle just because the idea of connection seems so positive. So looks like it feels so good. Anchor, stork, and rider. So in this case, we've got like stability or work, something that weighs down. We've got movement, migration, and we've got news, also movement. So why am I always attracted to or drawn to losers? I think it's a desire to tie down someone who is migratory. So maybe it's not that they're losers, it's just that the impulse is to tie down someone who's attracted to movement, and someone who's a mover. So the attraction isn't necessarily to losers, but to very migratory men, and the need to tie them down or hold them down to stabilize them makes for discord, and it feels in that case like they're losers because they're just not they're not they're not interested in settling down. Dog, pig, and star. So the pig is kind of like sloppy, messy. What does he say in the book? I've been looking at it as sort of sloppy, messy. He says opulence, luxury, wealth, gain. I look at it as sloppy, messy, or even kind of gluttonous. So if I look at it that way, there's loyalty, right? Friendship and loyalty, gluttony and hope. So why am I always attracted to losers? We're so like greedy with our need for loyalty, that we put hope in dirty or less than optimal situations. So again, like our loyal self is so kind of hungry, that we take sort of sloppy situations and invest hope in them. Um, so the key again is the kind of loyal hunger, and the kind of dirty dirty hope, or like the mud, putting our hopes in the mud, because the loyalty is so, our need for that loyalty is so hungry and so great. This is one of those, like, I'm looking at this now and thinking, if I were sitting with the person who actually asked me this question, I'd have to be very careful about how I worded it, with these particular cards, because what there is a greediness, um, in these two, in this combination, and then kind of a sloppiness, or um, like a really kind of like dank quality to this, putting our hopes in like this really dank situation. So that's a situation where I think I would want to be careful about how I phrased it. Letter, Cupid, and Hearth. Now, the Cupid and the Hearth are extra cards. I'm just going to share with you what the book says about these, but I have my own. So, the Cupid in my case is just being sort of struck with feeling. It's not like the heart, where it's like actual emotion. This is like a spark of attraction, or that sudden like inkling. And then the Hearth is like warmth, home, the things that make us feel comfortable. What does he say in the book? 48 and 47. Flame for him is comfort, and then Cupid for him is impulse. So kind of the same. So this is interesting. This would be a hard one. So we've got letter, Cupid, and flame, or hearth is how I've been thinking about it. So information, communication, impulse, being struck by something, and flame. So maybe the tendency to be drawn to losers again isn't so much that they're losers or that you're drawn to them, but what you are drawn to, is that early communication with them excites your emotions so much, and those emotions feel warmer and realer and more comfortable than they really are. So there's that. I'll do one more with this question and then switch to another question. So house, tree, and scythe. So this again, we've got home, security, safety, well-being, longevity. I read this as well-being because I just don't deal with health. And then scythe, so we have cutting. I don't know if you can hear that, but like giant sheets of icy snow are falling outside my door. Or maybe someone's shoveling it. Anyway, so house, and then tree, and then scythe. So the desire, the warmth for like a long lasting home that makes you feel safe and warm for like a long time, and makes you feel good, and makes you feel healthy, puts yourself in positions where your well-being is actually being cut at, because again the desire for this is drawing you to people that are cutting, or to maybe people who aren't capable of sustaining that, people who are actually willing to cut down your well-being or cut down your longevity, but the desire for that again. So where the theme seems to be in a lot of these so far, and again, this is sort of how my own like personal experience of colors the meanings, but there's this feeling of like the desire for something is affects the choices we're making. So how will my job interview go? So there's a question that's a little less fraught than the loser's question. So we have clouds, lightning, and woman. And in I use this as something shocking, something surprising, or something electric. What does he say it is? Mr. Edward calls it sudden. So, I heard the woman card today in a video described as when it's not the querent or a woman in the querent's life as receptivity, which I thought was really interesting. So that I think is it. So if this were a person who was interviewing with a woman, what I could say is that the woman's confusion suddenly is cleared by the interview, or the interview is hazy, but it suddenly makes the person receptive to them. So that's a little nebulous. This is again why this is practice. I'm going to pause here for 1 sec because I need to check on something. All right, I'm back. There was so much noise outside. I just want to see if anyone was out there. It shouldn't be. Because there's been problems with that lately. All right, so we did the how will my job interview go? Let's try another 3. So fish, bed, and coffin. So this is interesting. This card in the maybe Lenormand is usually about sickness or rest, and then this, of course, is about endings. So we have fish, sickness, endings. Now, I don't, again, read for health under any circumstance. So I just use this bed card to represent rest or self-care or something like it. And then, or even like sleeping, like pausing, and then of course ending. So how will my job interview go? We've got fish, money, sort of financial stability, which is good, pausing, and ending. So this could depend a lot on the context. If this were a person who was unemployed, I'd probably say that it doesn't look like they're going to get that job because the money that they have is resting and coming to an end. Oh, I see. There's a plow outside. That scared the crap out of me. I'm going to pause this so that the noise doesn't get in the way. All right. Weirdness after weirdness this afternoon. I'm not usually home at this time of day, or if I am, I'm like not dealing with giant monstrous trucks outside my driveway. So here we are. This is practice, right? So who cares? So let's do another 3 with the job interview question, and then I'll try a new question. So man, train, and lilies. The train is another extra card, of course, and Mr. Edward refers to that as he calls it traverse, landlocked travel, domestic business, public transportation, fast, efficient. I don't know that I've yet come up with something that feels that differentiates this from the ship necessarily, which is more long-term, slower travel. So I would say this is maybe fast travel. So if I'm reading for a man, this might be an interview means quick movement toward a peaceful situation. If this were not a man, this might suggest a projective rather than receptive attitude of considering projecting ourselves to move fast towards what we want. So how will the interview go? This is more well, so again, there's a couple ways. As always, I'm working through my own internal monologue here. So how the interview go? If the interview is with a man, the man may have the means to push us quickly towards what we want, towards something peaceful. The man may aggressively try to seduce us, or the interview will go well if we project an assertive but gentle attitude. He says, as though he's good at this. Sorry, I forgot to change the question. Let's just do one more. So bouquet, snake, and the rose. Interesting, we've got the rose and the bouquet. The rose in this deck is more about seduction than the surprise or gift. So we've got a surprise gift. That's a good thing. We've got snake, which is sneaky or winding, and then seductive. So we've got this sort of sinuous, seductive, maybe sneaky seduction. So it seems like the interview may go surprisingly well, but it may be luring us into something a little sneaky. So the interview may go well, but the job may not be quite right for us, but it still looks really sexy. Or we may be being lured into something that's a little more that requires a little bit more of our seductive, or we may need to be more seductive, or we may be put in a position of being seduced. And that feels a bit more like being seduced. So sneaky, sinewy, seductive, alluring, but maybe a little dangerous for a job. So it could go well, but is that what we want? Where can I be most productive in life? So this is the honor card, the medal, the ring, and the book. So this is, again, an extra card, and he refers to this in the book as, it's like valor, honors, recognition, awards, which is basically how I've been thinking about it. So awards, valor, honor, ring, and book. Education, I would say in this case probably more than secrets, because we're talking about where we fit in as being productive. So this is kind of an advice question. Contracts, agreements, cycles, honor, valor, awards. So I think here it's something that recognizes commitments, awards, commitments in education, education cycles, honors societies even. So I might say this is where you can be most productive, is in a place where you're helping people maybe connect with education, helping people award. So maybe like working in financial aid, awards, contracts, and education. So working as a recruiter or financial aid officer might be a good answer to that. That's unusually specific for me. So I guess there's always something. Where can I be most productive? Mountain fox, whip broom. Right out of the gate, there's the sense of nature and repetition. So this is traditionally a block or an obstacle, but climbing, fox. So I mean, I'm getting a sense of, and I'm just going intuition wise here, I might not in this case be tempted to go with the traditional thing of like blockage, craftiness, and abuse, but more being like a nature guide, a tour guide, repetitive tours of nature, who knows the natural world, something out there that involves the natural, or cleaning even. I mean, with the broom, I know the broom is supposed to be, or the whip is supposed to be like argumentative, abuse, sometimes nastiness, but honestly, in this particular deck, because it's just a broom, I have a hard time not thinking about it as cleaning. And so, working in a nature preserve and caring for that land, up in the mountains, caring for the natural world, working with endangered species, you know what I mean? Um, let's try another question. How can I expect the reaction to my novel to be? So this person wants to know how people or how the reviews will be for their novel. So we have Crossroads, Cross, and Moon. Crossroads and Cross are an interesting combination because there's a crossiness there. Choices, crossroads, paths, burdens, religion, um, heavy, and then reputation, dreams, intuition, cycles. So um, it feels like the reviews will be mixed and maybe a little burdensome. And yet, like that burden and the work, the labor of it will improve your reputation. So that the reviews will be mixed and you're not going to love that. The work that you did, the effort, the labor, the burden that you carried is going to improve your reputation overall. So the reviews themselves may not be glowing, but it's going to do good. It's going to be positive for your overall reputation. What will it take to find a lasting relationship? This person asks. So we have key, and then this is wine. I think of it as like Bacchus and then mice. So what does he say about that? I use that as like indulgence, joy, like excess. He calls it revelry. And drinking, party, merriment, levity. So it's sort of like the party aspect of the garden, like amped up to a bacchanalian state. So we have key, unlocking joy, merriment, and then mice, thievery or anxiety. Again, I heard someone describe this to me as excess, or sort of overindulging. So there could be a sense in this of like, interestingly, what's the key to finding a long-lasting relationship? You could say is like going overboard in excess, but what might be a better case is like or a better, more temperate response is the key is taking away overindulgence. So the key is moderation. Not going like crazy party boy, trying to get all the girls, but more taking that away from your personality and just settling a little bit, and being a little bit more temperate, to steal a word from tarot. Lion, clover, mirror. So these two are extras. He describes the lion, I think about it as pride, as prideful, as sort of, and that's exactly what he describes it as. He also describes it as clan and ego. And then the mirror, to me, is something shattering. And what does he say about it? He calls it shattered. Disruption, misperceptions, bad luck. So, interesting. We've got sort of luck and bad luck from a stereotypical standpoint. Pride, luck, a little bit of luck, shattering, breaking. So interesting. What will it take for me to find a long-lasting relationship? Being proud of the little luck that you've had, but not maybe settling for that. Breaking the mold, shattering the mold of, you're proud of what you've gotten so far, but you got to sort of break that. That's one way to think about it. Maybe not the clearest. Pride, luck, shatter. Maybe overconfidence, like what your pride has made you overconfident in what's really just a little bit, and like shattering that perception of yourself as being like a pride kind of lucky. So this can sometimes be like gamblers, like I think about Playboy. So being like a proud Playboy, shattering that image might help. Um, what if I move to New York? Asks this person, and we have safe, sun, and tower. So safe, sun, and tower. Safe is money. And this is one that I haven't had come up too much in my practice. He says, I think that it's like surprise money as opposed to the fish, if I'm not mistaken. The safe represents your actual funds. While the fish may be your affluence and the bear your financial stability, the safe represents your actual funds. So maybe it's your savings, which would make sense, right? Your savings if you're moving to New York. So what if I move to New York? Your savings so the sun is always positive and warm, right? Your savings will keep you sort of safe, but you may need to be more isolated. So your savings can sustain you, but you're going to have to either get a job, because this can be a corporate institution, so you may have to get a corporate job, or you're going to have to be isolated a little bit from maybe a more like party lifestyle. So we have rapiers and child and cat. So these are 2 extra cards. The rapiers are conflict or duel, debate, attack, challenges. And in this deck, because I've been using the broom so much to be repetitive and sweeping, I've been relying on this card to be more about conflict. It isn't necessarily a good habit to get into because not all decks use this, although I'm really only using this deck. Now, the cat he describes as like self-centered, and I kind of think of it that way, but also like independent. So what if I move to New York? Conflict, that's new conflict leads to independence. So making yourself uncomfortable may lead to a new sense of independence, but it may also lead to a new solitude. So it's not going to be easy. There's going to be a little bit of fighting something new, but that new thing may lead you to be more independent. Will we get married is the last one I have here, and I think we've got 4 cards left. We do. So I've got bear, ship, birds, and garden. So yes or no questions are not something I've really got much experience with. So this will be interesting. What I've learned is that a larger amount of suits, of the black suits, are negative responses, and red suits are positive responses. So if I look at it this way, I could say no. But something strong is moving. The birds can be anxiety and gossip, but they can also be coupling towards celebration. So something strong is moving slowly towards a couple celebrating. So I could read it that way as yes, which is what my instinct says to me. Something powerful, something protective moves to anxiety or gossip in a group. Doesn't feel right. So I would probably, in this case, say something strong is moving towards a couple celebrating. So I'd probably say that maybe it looks like all signs point to yes in this case. So I want to try 2 more things. I'll let me just randomly draw another question. I want to do like a practice 9 card because I haven't really been practicing that. And I was about to say, if you don't want to see it, I'm sorry, but then I just once again realized that if you don't want to see it, you've probably shut this off by now. So I can do whatever I want. So let's see, what question are we gonna work with? The first one I drew is how will my interview go? So That's what I'm going to go with, even though that's not one I feel like dealing with. But in life, we don't get to choose what people ask us. And as such, it's probably better to practice the questions we don't know or don't want to deal with than the ones we'd rather deal with. So I just want to do a 9 card to see how I'm doing with that. This is just a check-in. I've done a few 9 card readings for people. The other night, I actually was just sitting down watching TV, and a friend was texting me, and I said, "Hey, I'm learning Lenormand. Do you want some, like, a quick reading?" And I did like 3 cards for her. And I think we were both actually stunned about how much they mirrored her situation. So that made me go, maybe this is more useful than I thought it was. Maybe I shouldn't be such a crank and, invest time in practicing. So that's what I'm doing. Again, though, with the exception of the swords and the broom, having the extra cards in here hasn't felt like an inhibition. And I know what the whip broom thing is supposed to mean. So I guess if I wanted to take the extra cards out of this deck, I could and still be okay. I actually really like kind of having them, though. So the question becomes, how will my interview go? And I learned the spread from watching, initially from Caitlin Matthews' book, but also from watching Kelly from the Truth and Stories videos too. So I'm going to kind of appropriate her method, which means that she starts in the middle, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, does it this way. But that doesn't matter all that much because I'm doing it this way, and that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so here is how I understand this to go. The first card that comes down is the overall theme, and this is its largest impact on it. And then we have past, present, and future. We also have sort of past, present, and future this way. And then there's things like knighting and corners and all that jazz, if we need more information. So again, I'm gonna work. This is my struggle with doing this kind of reading is that I kind of do a decent job getting everything, like meaning things, but then putting it together into an overall answer to a question has not been easy for me. So the question again is, how will my interview go? All right, so we've got news or communication that's confusing. Confusing communication to me is a good warning in preparation for an interview, because it suggests that what you're attempting to communicate may cause confusion, right? So you may not be on your game, or your nerves, for example, may get in the way of your ability to communicate clearly. So that's something that's a good thing to know ahead of time, because you can do things to combat that. The other thing that I think about is that the letter is really supposed to be written communication, right? Because the birds is dialogue. So this may suggest that your resume or cover letter has caused confusion. And so but you've gotten an interview because you're asking how the interview is going to go. So that's good. But you may not have necessarily painted the picture that you wanted to. So, right now there's a sense of confusion. Sorry, I'm putting my foot on. I have this awkward set, whatever, you don't care. So yeah, there's this confusion, that your written communication has caused. So that is, this is an opportunity to correct that. So that's maybe not good news, but it's good to know ahead of time. So then we look at past, present, and future. confusion, scythe, and luck. So in the past, it looks like confusion has been cut out by a little bit of luck. So recently, and I would say the clover makes it very recent. Something cloudy, something confusing has been cut out by a small bit of luck. Maybe getting this interview. And then if I look down this way at the past, the confusion has unlocked your savings. So I would say, like, probably, if I even just look at the images, like the state of confusion you've been in, the state of like darkness, I'm going to go with, right? Because if you're unemployed, I'm getting a sense of unemployment. Because this kind of dark state has unlocked your bank account, basically. So it's like the key opened your bank account and everything's coming out of it, or has come out of it. So you're running low on funds, and yet you've had a little bit of luck. Some of the dark clouds have been cut by a little bit of luck. Now, another way to read this, and this is where I start to get confused as a Lenormand reader, is another way to look at this is that the dark clouds were cutting, the confusion cut your luck. So that's another way to read it. But what I coach people to do with tarot is to trust your instinct. Now, again, if this were a real reading for a real person, I could ask them which was right. But most of, like I say a lot, most of my readings are not done that way. So it's worth looking at, like trusting your instinct. Sorry, I just got distracted. All right, so we have past here. So I do get a sense of like the dark clouds hanging over a situation, which makes me feel like this person might be running out of money, might be unemployed, but they are feeling hopeful because something has cut out this, and they're feeling lucky. So something is cutting at. So I feel like that's the interview itself, having gotten the interview. The present, we have key, letter, and paths or crossroads. So written communication is key. So written communication may be a key to making a choice, making the path, making the decision to move forward, what the future decision is. So unlocking communication, choice. So this is why I really don't read for people very often, because I get so muddled. But again, this is all about practice. And I don't, I do feel myself getting better, a little bit better as I go through this, but it's still, it's not easy. This is so different from tarot. Although I will say that having learned about Lenormand this way has changed the way I read tarot in I think a better way. So I feel like the key is communication, the key is writing, the key is communicating choice. All right, let me come back to that and see if the downward present helps me at all. So we've got scythe, communication, we have scythe, letter, and mirror. So we have harvesting, cutting, again, communication, and shattering, cracking, breaking, bad luck. So we've got cutting, communication, bad luck. So what may be interesting, what I'm getting as I look at this from these three is like this person may have a cutting style that that affects people's perceptions of them badly. Which, if I tie back to my initial thing here, so maybe in their communication they come off as arrogant or cutting, you know, and so that in their present state is causing them some bad luck, even though they feel lucky. It's causing a little bit of bad luck. So, but communication is key, and they have a choice. So maybe that's what this suggests, is that right now they're at a choice about how they're going to communicate and how they're going to present themselves in this interview. Because again, they're dealing with the interview going into a perception where what they've communicated has left people confused and cloudy about them. And it looks like the way they go about communicating can be cutting and damaging. So the key is communicating, making a choice to communicate well, choosing to communicate in a way that's going to be more appropriate. So this is their present. And now when I look towards the future, I'm looking here and here. So if things go the way they are, which is what we're always looking at, we have, again, the safe, the mirror, and the pig. And then we have clover, crossroads, and pig. So everything comes down to the pig card here. So we've got their savings shattering, and gluttony. So what this looks like right now is if things keep going the way they are, the savings account is going to keep leaking out because of like hunger, maybe overconsumption. So it suggests right now that regardless of whether they're going to get the job, like their tendency toward overconsumption is going to keep going on and keep thinning their savings. So there, we've got this luck that leads to a choice about consumption and about again, sloppiness, right? So, luck, choice, sloppiness, or opulence. I talked about sloppiness earlier with this piggish, dirty. Such a weird way to say it, right? But this person communicates in a way that's confusing, and they can come off as cutting and not in a positive light. They have a choice though how they want to present themselves. If they present themselves in a piggish way, in this sloppy way, it's not going to go well. If they can change the way they communicate, if they can come off as less cutting, then they may be able to present themselves in a more positive, playful, way, rather than sloppy and greedy. So this is a difficult reading, to get at, because the interview, how will it go? Well, right now, I would say their tendency, honestly, their ingrained attitude. This is where I struggle usually, so that's why I'm excited about what I'm about to say. How will the interview go? Right now, I feel like this is the key. So their tendency is to be somewhat overzealous, greedy, which can mean needy, which can mean just too much, too much of something. And their luck is affected by their choice, and their instincts, their choice may lead them to fall back on that, for lack of a better word, that piggish behavior, which can get them in trouble, and their tendency to overconsume. And in an interview, that can mean taking over the room even. So the interview looks like it it's coming down to how they choose to behave and how they choose to present that natural quality. Are they going to come off as kind of playful and fun, or are they going to come off as sloppy and messy and careless? So I've done these and I've done the rows. Everything sort of seems to filter here. So I want to look at this card. Seems so powerful here. Confusion, communication, opulence, he calls this, but the things I've described. So we have these same sort of confused communication, and maybe communication overindulged. So maybe there's a tendency to say too much. You know, they may be verbose. This could be me. They talk too much. So their communication is like overkill. And that's worth knowing. So if they moderate, if they're more temperate, if they're more moderate, that could be a good thing. I want to look at how the pig card knights itself, because it does seem like such a strong force here. So it goes up, over. So we have scythe. So cutting that behavior is good, and this behavior over, up is key. So this really is a card, like cutting out this behavior is a key to this situation. So I don't know that I would go much further than that in this case, because I feel like I have a very good sense overall of where we're at with this person. So how will the interview go? Well, the communication so far has been confusing. Their reputation is a little shaky. The way they presented themselves is not necessarily in the best light, and their tendencies could hurt them. But if they can moderate that, if they can show themselves in the best possible light, it could go better. But it all comes down to what their animal instincts are in this case, and moderating those. So the answer is a little bit up in the air right now. It does depend on how they manage the way they present themselves going forward in that interview. It could go well. I would say right now, unless they work really, really hard, their instincts may take over, and that's not going to be a good thing for them. So, but if they can do it, and this is one reason why reading is helpful. If they can do that, this could go better. There is a little bit of luck in here, but the natural tendencies are so powerful. They really you need more than just a little bit of luck. Although, you know, the clover does knight the key, so there is some luck at work. And the clouds knight the mirror, the shattering, so confusion could break through. We could break through the confusion. We can choose to be more financially sound. So, like, choices can be made. This person has choices in how they handle themselves. But the luck can also be broken. And we have bad luck and luck knighting each other. So they're really, like, stuck in the middle, you know? It really could go either way. So anyway, this has been a long video, so I'm going to stop now. I hope this is interesting. This is my this is just what I've been doing alone as I have time, but talking through it helps, and I hope it helps to hear how I'm doing it, and I'd be curious to hear how you interpret things, how you might interpret this 9-card spread, and yeah, hope you're well.